Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Limahl. Limahl, you may remember from Kajagoogoo or The Neverending Story. Well, we do have a never-ending story. Well, it does have an end, but we talk about a lot. We talk about his rise to success. We talk about his relationship and so much more. So tune in. Hi, Limahl. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. We had an amazing spring day in the UK. So it was 20 Celsius. What would that be in Fahrenheit? I don't know, somewhere like mid 60s.
Nice.
Glorious sunshine, a spring day. I went to my gym and there's a really nice terrace with people laying out in the sun like it was midsummer. And I sat out there for 10 minutes. It was so hot. I had to go in because I didn't have any sun cream. But yeah, I feel great. Lovely day. I cycled there, which is nice from where I live. All off road as well, because cycling can be scary, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're dealing with traffic and cars and everything else. Here over where I live near outside of Chicago, it was 80 2 or 3 days ago, and then we had snow, and now we're back in the 30s, and we had snow. We had storms yesterday in the 50s, and now it's sunny and pretty today, but it's like 40.
Wow. So I've only been to Chicago once in December. So you
Oh,
can imagine. I
oh,
came out of the hotel on the first morning and I think about 3 feet of snow had fallen and everybody was out with their little machines and shovels. It was amazing how quickly they got rid of it, but I guess you're used to it.
we are and we're not because I've lived here for roughly 40 years now, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like we used to get snow in October, and this year I think we've had maybe 4 or 5 times of snow, and that's it.
Wow.
And it's not even
Wow.
been that much. So,
Right. It's all in that iceberg that's floating.
yes, yes. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about. I know you have a song called 1983. 1983 was a major year for you, but I want to talk to you about answering that ad in the Melody Maker magazine. The reason why is because looking at, your history. And I'm one of those people that believe you have to be, sometimes things present themselves just at that right moment. And if you don't take that opportunity, you don't know what you're going to miss out on. But for like you answered that ad, and then that ad led to the band, then that you working at the embassy club led to something else. And do you feel that you were right when you saw that ad? Did something click in you and say, "Okay, I got to answer this," or was it just, "Okay, I'm answering anything and see what sticks to the wall"?
Well, Donna, it's interesting you put it that way because actually what happened was they answered my ad. So
Okay.
the four-piece band before they were Kajagoogoo were called Art Nouveau. And I had an ad looking for a band, looking for musicians to form a band. And I'd seen several musicians over that weekend and didn't really click. You know, they were nice people, but image-wise, it wasn't really doing it for me. But I'd kept a few numbers and I thought maybe I'll see some more people. And then I got a call from Nick a couple of days later, the bass player in Kajagoogoo, then Art Nouveau. And he said to me, "Hi, my name's Nick. I know you're looking to form a band, but we are already a band. And we've had an ad looking for a singer, which, by the way, I hadn't seen." And he said, "Would you be interested in coming up?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" I thought, what have I got to lose? So I jumped on a train. It's about 50 miles north of London, this little town called Leighton Buzzard, commuting town into London. And Nick met me at the station. It was about 5:30. He drove me to the greeting card factory where the drummer worked. And the factory closed at 6, and the boss had said that we could rehearse on the factory floor after 6 because we could make lots of noise, etc. And of course, it was free, whereas a rehearsal studio would cost
Oh
money,
yeah.
etc. And by the way, most musicians listening to this will know that rehearsal studios are not the most glamorous places. They're usually damp, sweaty, dark, no windows. But obviously, they're important places. So yeah, that's how it began, Donna. It was the guys. saw my advert in the Melody Maker. I think you mentioned that at the beginning, which
Hmm.
was the Bible, really.
Right.
The classified ads section at the back was so important. There was always bands looking for singers and singers looking for musicians and recording demo studios offering their services and so on and so forth.
And we had that here in Chicago and as well as Dallas. I don't remember the name of the paper at the time, but my roommate and she wanted to be, I was a bass player, and my roommate really wanted to be a backup singer. And so there was an ad, this was like 1989. There was an ad looking for backup singers for like in the style of Duran Duran and whatnot. So we answered the ad and we both got to do it. I was not, but it was not my intention. It was just like, I'm just going with you. No, 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 you have to audition as well. So I know all about those ads. I even became a TV producer because I answered an ad for an actress here in Chicago. So I understand in those ads, they could change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, I wondered how far do you want to go back? You think if I ha it's a bit like the movie Sliding Doors. You've got three choices, left or right or straight
Hmm.
on, or turn back,
Hmm.
four choices. So yeah, it's weird. Serendipity. I think opportunities, they can come along. You have to be ready for them. Otherwise, when I met Nick Rhodes at the Embassy Club, yeah, I would have just been meeting another famous person, and well, I think we all found it fascinating at the time where the press, because our first single went to number one in the UK, number one all over the world, top five in America. We were labeled an overnight sensation, and really nothing could be further from the truth because we've been slogging away, all of us separately. The band had been working a long time. That obviously they'd studied their instruments, recorded demos, they'd gigged. I'd been in three musicals, which was great for singing, for training, for discipline, you know. Because if you're doing 8 shows a week in Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, you really do discover how this little vocal cord in your throat, what it likes, what it doesn't like, what upsets it, what makes it feel okay. You also learn this huge sense of responsibility because it's not just about you. You've got to be there for the rest of the cast, for the
Hmm.
producers and directors. You can't let people down, and so you have to become a really team player. And that's an amazing learning curve. It really is. And that's why when I go to the theatre in the West End, I'm up there on stage with them. I, it just takes me right back.
Well, and I think being in a theater could actually prepare you for being in a band because in a band you have to work as a unit. No matter how much one person may excel at something, you have to be a unit at a certain point to be cohesive and come up with the material and the songs. You can't just say, well, look, these are my lyrics, that's it, I'm not doing anything else. You have to be willing to be flexible at times. Do you not?
You do. And I think if you spend enough time with the band, the camaraderie comes across, the charisma, if you like, for want of a better word, it should come across this unit that's gelling, that has the same goal, the same aspirations. Yeah. Looking back, you know, it's amazing how we came up with this song Too Shy because we had such different backgrounds musically. The drummer was into a band called Devo. I
I
think
know
they
them.
were American.
Hmm.
Um, the bass player was into prog rock, progressive rock from the 70s. Steve Askey, the guitarist, loved Robert Fripp, the guitarist. I was quite middle of the road. And I liked that about the band. They gave me a bit of an edge, because left to me, I'd be singing, Andy Williams. Or I'd be crooning. No, no, I mean, I'm
I know.
joking.
I know.
I'm joking, but that's what I grew up on, at home in my small town as a young teenager. The Andy Williams TV show was huge in the UK. And of course, he's my favorite crooner, funnily enough. Of all the crooners, he's still the one for me. And I was very lucky because I got to see him at the Royal Albert Hall in London in the mid 90s. He came over because there was a resurgence of that great song of his. The boys watch the girls while the girls watch the boys who watch the girls go by. I do I. You know that
Yes.
one?
No, I don't, but
Oh, okay. Oh gosh.
I do know who Andy Williams is. And I do remember his show. So,
Yeah.
but I don't remember the
He
TV.
gave the world the Osmonds. I mean, come on.
Yes, and I did grow up watching the Osmonds, and I even have their Barbie dolls.
Wow.
Then
No,
I
I
got
don't have those. I did buy a couple of records, and I love that duet with Donny and Marie. I'm giving up to
Mhm.
you. You decide what you're gonna do. We're in harmony. It was lovely. And do you know what I used to love? They had these glamorous white microphones. Do you
Mhm.
remember the white
Yes,
microphones?
yes, I do.
Oh God, I used to look at that microphone and think, I've got to get one of those.
And did you ever achieve that dream?
No,
Oh,
no. In
oh,
fact, I don't think I've ever seen a white microphone. But anyway, stainless steel is cool.
yeah,
I think the coolest microphones are the vintage looking ones. You know, all the
yeah.
musicians love to use those in their videos.
I have a question. So, let's go back to the Nick Rhodes thing. You're working. What made you decide, hey, I'm going to ask him if he'll do this? I mean, that takes a lot of as I would
Front.
say, yeah.
You know what? When you're 20 years old,
Mhm.
I was a cheeky kid as well, you know, and I just we were cheeky. I mean, come on, we're hanging around the streets with nothing to do, with no money, on my little council estate in Wigan. It's a survival mechanism being cheeky, you know. You'd ask for stuff because you knew you wouldn't get it any other way. So the cheeky kid, the Embassy Club. Uh, and I'm sorry if people have heard me say this before, but the Embassy Club in Old Bond Street in London in 1979, 80, 81 was one of the best clubs to go to in London. The other big club that everyone was talking about was even very avant-garde. It was Steve Strange from Visage. It was his club called the Blitz. But the Embassy Club was a bit more mainstream. You had paparazzi outside trying to snap the celebs. I served drinks to Gary Newman, Bananarama, Lemmy from Motorhead, Elton John's manager, John Reed. It was just it was the place to go. And one night I served a drink to Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran, and he was in there with his manager, one of his managers, Paul Barrow. And the Barrow brothers managed Duran. They were the nightclub owners, the Rum Runner nightclub in Birmingham. That night it was Paul Barrow, Paul and Mike Barrow were the managers. I don't know if they still are,
No, they're not.
but oh, okay. But yeah, well, it's been 40 years.
Yeah.
But I served a drink. We just had a rapport, chatting away. Loved the band. Just bought your album, blah blah blah. And I don't remember exact. I mean, come on, I don't
Oh,
remember an
I know.
exact conversation. But basically, I do remember that he said I told him about my band, Kajagoogoo, and we've recorded some demos and we're doing some gigs and blah blah blah. The next thing he says, "Well, send me a tape. I'll have a listen, let you know what I think." Cassettes, kids.
Yes.
Gives me an address. I send him the cassette, and a week later, I'm living in Lancaster Gate, which is West London, in a flat near Hyde Park, third floor. There was a really old-fashioned 70s green phone on the wall with that really twirly cord,
Mm-hmm.
and it rang, the old-fashioned ring that they now use in horror movies. But that's another story. So pick up. Hi, Limahl, it's Nick. I've got the tape. I like the demos very much. I'm going to take them into EMI Records
Wow.
and tell them I'd like to produce you. I mean, it was all of that information all in one go was just so mind blowing because really I wasn't sure whether I'd even hear from him, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I put the phone down, picked myself up off the floor, called the band, very excited, because I'd moved back to London at this point. The band was still in Leighton Buzzard, this town north of London. And that's what happened. And the irony is that EMI Records had actually turned down our demos 6 weeks before. So the old adage, it's not what you know,
But who?
is totally true.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, you know, they saw some, I don't know, maybe it was the right nudge. If someone like Nick Rhodes was saying this is good, maybe they just, because I think they do get deaf, especially the corporates,
Oh yeah.
you know, and today it's probably even worse, record company, people complain that the industry is being run by accountants and lawyers, and all they care about is streaming numbers, but that's another story. I'm digressing.
But here's
So,
the go ahead, sorry.
yeah, well, I was just going to say, so Nick, the wonderful thing was Nick was humble enough to bring on board the Duran Duran producer, a guy called Colin Thurston, sadly, the late Colin Thurston, who died young of cancer in his early 50s, bless him. Now, Colin was an old school engineer. He'd come from that real, you know, ethos of technical engineering, and what was required for I mean, when you're in a recording studio for the first time, it looks like back in those days, the cockpit of an aeroplane with knobs and faders
Mm-hmm.
everywhere and little twinkling lights, and Colin knew how to operate everything. I remember he hired some fantastic equipment. So we had a bass drum, and he makes a phone call. Can you get me in that AKG, you know, sub something or other? I think it was like a valve compressor. He said it was going to add warmth to the bass drum and really make it punch. Things like that, that I'm not even sure that Nick Rhodes would have, known about. So the combination of Colin and Nick was just perfect. And, and here's an important detail, or as you Americans say, detail. When you've got five band members and the guitarist wants the guitar to be heard and the drummer wants the snare to be heard, etc., you got two captains of the ship in Colin and Nick who crack the whip and say, "Get out the studio, guys, and let us get on with our job." So that it was just a jigsaw puzzle of great pieces.
And then you go on after working with Nick, you end up going once you part ways with Kaja for a bit, you ended up working with Giorgio Moroder with Neverending Story. And I mean, I know he is world renowned. He is a producer that everybody still talks about to this day. How was that experience for you?
That was amazing. And I've often said it's a bit like if you're an actor and you get a call from Steven Spielberg, you know, that's the equivalent of getting a call from either I mean, let's think of iconic producers, George Martin, the Beatles, Trevor Horn, ABC, and Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Phil Spector, of course, um, the Motown producers, TSOP, the Sound of Philadelphia, so Gamble and Huff. There's and let's not leave out PWL, Pete Waterman Limited. Stock Aitken and Waterman in the UK had a ton of hits and actually gave Donna Summer, an early Giorgio Moroder collaboration. It gave her another massive comeback hit in the 80s. So I met Giorgio in Tokyo, and I went to the Tokyo Music Festival at the request of EMI Records to promote my first solo single, Only for Love. And while I was there, I met Giorgio. A key person in that moment was my then manager, Billy Gaff, an Irish guy who'd worked for some of the big years with Rod Stewart. His famous Chelsea parties, well, his Chelsea parties were infamous. He was a real entrepreneur. He was a real character. And Billy went to dinner with Giorgio. And I imagine I can hear Billy now saying, uh, Limahl's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And Giorgio was a fan of Too Shy. So without the Kajagoogoo hit, there would have been no Neverending Story. It's interesting, isn't it?
Hmm.
One thing leading to another. So I came back to the UK, and a couple of weeks later, my manager called and said, Giorgio would like to try your voice on a new movie soundtrack he's doing. And as you do at 23 years old, the night before I was due to fly to Munich to try my voice, I was out night clubbing till 3 a.m., drinking and smoking. I got about 4 hours sleep. I nearly missed the flight, the early flight. The flight was about 10 a.m., but that was early for me
Hmm.
because you've got to be there 2 hours before, and you've got to travel to the airport, etc. So yeah, when I got to Munich, I couldn't sing a note.
Oh
The
no.
voice was tired. The voice was going. So Giorgio was very chilled. He had a lovely Italian accent. He goes, "Hey, Lim." If for some reason he was calling me Lim, short for Limahl. So, "Hey, Lim, don't worry. We have a little wine and some food, and we chill out. Don't worry." And that's what happened. And singing is really an evening thing. And by 8 o'clock, we were nailing it. And it's weirdly looking back, I wasn't worried. I just thought it's too early. I remember that was my thought. I think if I'd been older, I would have been in bed at 7 and behaving myself. But of course, 23, I was just lapping it all up. It
Oh
was
yeah.
really, really fun.
I mean, people knew you. I understand it was I don't want to say the rock star persona, but it was, you had that life going on at that time. So at 23, you're expected to, what, 10 o'clock? I'm not rolling out of bed until like noon, but okay. I mean, that was the whole mystique back then during that time.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of rebellion going on, because if you think about it, you know, all through your childhood, you're told to do this, that, and the other by the authorities, by the school, by your parents, and then you break free, you know,
Hmm.
and suddenly, I guess, the cliche expression, the world is your oyster, or it seems that way. Um, And thankfully, I always had a sensible gene because I've been in so many situations, but I always had that sensible gene. So there were a lot of drugs around, and a lot of alcohol, and it's all free, and it's all being offered. But I was always sensible, and thankfully, I've come out the other side vaguely sane.
I mean,
Um,
go ahead.
go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't think I don't know if I should add
Well, what I was
anything
going to
else.
say, you were mentioning the
I'll,
drugs, and I mean, I went to Live Aid in Philadelphia, and I'm 17 years old, and I'm up in the bleachers before my friends and I decided to go try to get in the crowd. But the people in front of us, and this was like my first real, because I was living in Shreveport at the time, so it was kind of at the time Shreveport was very much, you couldn't buy alcohol on Sunday. Things were really dead set. It was in the Bible Belt, so it wasn't that it was so religious, but things were a little bit different than they are now. And so we sit down in our seats where there was some chaperones, and the people in front of us whip out the little vial and start snorting coke. And I'm like, wow, if I were a narc, I'd be really doing well today. Because
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they were openly doing coke, and it was just like, I had never seen anybody do it. No, they didn't turn around and offer me any, but it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, okay.
Well, look, I'll share with you. The first time I experienced cocaine was I was at a celebrity's party. Okay, I'm not going to name at this point. And they brought this stuff out like they were like sugar bowls, and everyone was talking about it. And then I realized they've literally brought out a bowl of cocaine. Now you're talking. 1983 or 4, and this was the, popular drug, if
Hmm.
you like. And it was expensive, I guess, and not many other drugs were available. So it was almost considered a celebrity drug. It had glamour. It
Hmm.
really did when I think back. And oh my God, this is that stuff that they talk about in the newspapers and the media, you know. Oh, wow. So anyway, I'll be brutally honest with you. I did try it, and I honestly thought, what the hell is all the fuss about? That was my reaction.
Understand. I
Didn't
mean, the
It didn't
first,
do much for me at all. And maybe that's the reason, I just didn't really get into the drug thing. I've smoked hash and I fall asleep. Well, I like being I like I like being awake. I
hmm
could sleep all night. So no, I think drugs, personally, I think drugs are overrated. They are glamorized, because they're
yeah,
always associated with celebrities or whatever. But the truth is, they do create a lot of trouble. And I'm fine with a drink. I like, what? Alcohol is cool to a certain degree. Obviously, that can be taken to the extreme as well. Look at poor Amy Winehouse and others, of course. I think she was found with two empty bottles of vodka next to her,
yeah.
poor thing. Um, yeah, there's a lesson out there, kids, if you're listening, you can survive. And believe me, you've got to survive because when you get to, over 40, 45, maybe 50, uh, your body needs you, you
hmm
know,
hmm
and it ain't the body it used to be. And you need it to be there for you. So, treat it well when you're young. Have fun, but be sensible.
Which actually segues perfectly into your new song. The song that you're doing is a cover of America's Horse with No Name. And what's interesting is when I remember the song from being a kid or a teen. Yeah, I was a kid. And it was banned in certain US radio stations. Did you know that?
I
I'm sure
did.
you
I
did.
looked, I looked it up. Shocking. Go on.
But and the reason why I said it's a perfect segue because horse at the time they considered that to be slang term for heroin.
Mm.
And I had never known that. And yes, as a kid, I sang along to that song. It was always one of the favorite songs. But
But what wasn't, I mean, if you look back, there's probably, you know what YouTube is like. There's probably a top 10 of banned songs. And sometimes when songs are banned, it's just fascinating when you think where we are now. Uh, am I right in thinking, did I read, because you read so much and you forget, wasn't Fever by Peggy Lee banned in some places?
I think so. And this song now that I grew up listening to in the 70s was In the Summertime. If you actually listen to the lyrics of In the Summertime, um, it's really wrong. It really is wrong. It's got a nice little melody, but if you start listening to the lyrics, it's like, oh, yeah.
But where do you want to stop? I think of Delilah by Tom Jones. In
Yeah.
the lyric, he kills he kills his wife or girlfriend, and we're all singing along to it. And it's a huge hit. Yeah, I mean, times have changed. Times have changed. But where were we? I've completely
So we went off on the tangent because of the song, but what made you decide I want to cover this song?
So I'm a big fan of the song.
Okay.
It's a classic
Hmm.
here as well. I've loved it for a long time and subconsciously thought about, and then the other voice in my head would go, "Oh, don't you dare, you'll be lambasted." Uh, Very dangerous to cover a classic. But what happened was I started playing around with it, and I found this Jupiter 8 synthesizer. Kajagoogoo had one of them. It's in the Too Shy video, actually. We had a Jupiter 8 by Roland, and it was a wonderful one of the early synthesizers, came out about 79, 80, 81. And now you can get it as a plugin on audio software. So I'm playing around with it, and I got this wonderful envelope sequencer going, so that it's like a wah wah guitar, but on a chord, synth chord. So it opens and closes, so but with a musical chord. And I put some reverbs and delays on it, and then panning it, and I'm thinking, oh, this is really nice. Then I think, good, this is really different to the original, and that's what it has to be if I'm going to do it. I thought I'll go down the electronic route because I don't want to try to emulate those lovely folky guitars of the original. And the 80s and 90s at the moment are influencing a lot of young music makers. I hear that.
Hmm.
And so I introduced some sort of 90s ideas. Then I did, and I'm on and off working on it, on and off working on it. And by the way, I must say at some point, all creatives can have half finished ideas or quarter finished ideas on the shelf, whether you're an author writing a book or a filmmaker or creating music. And I'm no different. And I wasn't sure whether this was going to end up the same way, but it kept falling into place. And that kind of spurred me on. The icing on the cake was I did a TV show in the UK for a popular TV personality slash singer here called Jane McDonald. And they'd invited me on to do the Neverending Story because they were having a movie themed show. And while I was there, I had to rehearse with her band. And the guitarist is a guy called Steve Cooper, who lives in Birmingham. So I I asked Steve, I said, look, if I send you this thing I'm working on, will you throw some guitar on it as an experiment, not really thinking much about it. So send him the files. He sends me back some amazing guitar. I spent a couple of weeks editing it, and it it became clear that it has to be there because the wonderful thing that happens with a guitar on this kind of electronica is it's like the tension in an orchestra between all the instruments. So the synthesizer chord changes, the guitar lingers on as it fades away and almost introduces another note into the next chord that's already changed. So you get an added seventh or ninth or 11th note. And of course, Steve's guitar is very different to the lovely folk guitar of the original. And so that's how I ended up with this cake mixture, this recipe, if you like. It didn't come easy. Um, and I don't think tracks do come easy. Productions don't come easy these days because it's very competitive. And how many sounds, how many melodies, how many lyrics are left, you know?
I would agree. And I mean, here's the thing. I want to say I've listened to the song. It's really good. It's not by the time this podcast is out, the song will be released. I enjoyed it. It was a good cover, and I think you did it justice. I don't think you paid a good homage to it, but you made it your own. And that's a talent. I mean, I remember I drove all night. Celine Dion covered I Drove All Night, and I had a friend and her daughter was in college and her daughter was like, "Oh my God, this is the best song ever." And I'm like, "What? I Drove All Night by Celine Dion." I'm like, "That's not the original." She's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "That's not the original." And so I had to show her. And I think by you playing this song, by you redoing this song, you're not only possibly helping yourself, but you also bring it to the attention of the original. Some people will go back and look at the original. Just like you having the resurgence with the Neverending Story and Too Shy, by being placed in TV shows, other people are finding it. And that offers a much more diverse audience than what is being presented as there's such a limited amount of airplay now on the radio. And most people don't even listen to the radio. They're always streaming their music now. So you
Yeah,
have to find an audience in a different way than you used to.
yeah, yeah. Another thing about A Horse with No Name, it's not a song I could have ever written. And I did some research, and the English-born but American member of America and the songwriter Dewey Bunnell wrote the song influenced by his father was based at an Air Force base near the desert, and he spent a lot of time going through the New Mexico desert and the Arizona desert. So where I'm from, there are no deserts. You know,
True, true.
that song was never going to come to me. And then, of course, it's such a great lyric. You know, it's like one of those crazy dreams you wake up from and can't quite work out how the hell did I dream that, you know? So that's another appealing factor for me, this the history of how it influenced the songwriter, Dewey Bunnell.
Then I want to ask you this. You took some acting classes and then you were in theater last October, correct?
Uh, I think it was earlier than that. It was a 2 or 3 years ago. Yes, I did do a theatre show and purely acting. When I started in theatre, they were musicals, so I was singing. And in fact, in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, there is no dialogue because that was the genre that Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice um, were putting out to the public. So Jesus Christ Superstar, rock opera, everything sung. How are you? I am fine. Take him over there.
Yeah.
Opera.
Hmm.
And I love opera, you know. I'll say I love it, but I've enjoyed it. Um, so, oh God, I've gone off on a tangent and forgot what I was saying.
We were
What
talking
was the
about you
question
doing
again?
theater, the acting
Yes,
portion.
yes. So 3 years ago, I did a play called Earthquakes in London, and yeah, it was terrifying. I've played to 40,000 people at a music festival. This was a small theater, about 250 people, and I tell you, my heart was racing. Yeah, when it's silent and the words that you say are the audience are hanging on to every word they're listening. Yeah, there's definitely a pressure. And it scared the hell out of me, I'll be honest. And then I I chickened out, I guess. I chickened out. I thought, well, I because it was such a scary experience. And I thought, well, I'll leave it for a while and I'll do some music. And I haven't gone back yet. I don't know if I will.
Why was it? I
And
mean, I can understand partially it was intimidating because it's so intimate, but I'm sure you played clubs back in the day that were just as small. Is it because when you're singing you can put on a persona and when you're acting you feel more raw?
I think it's experience.
Okay.
You know, I think I was thrown in at the deep end, really. And I think you have to, I think if you're an inexperienced look, if I regularly go out to music festivals and perform to 10,000 people, and I've done it so many times that, you know, I just go out, I embrace it, I love it. If you're relaxed, it relaxes the audience. There's an immediate connection. Um, and you know, I've got a few performer tricks up my sleeve, as you do. And I just haven't done enough acting, you know. Almost, I think you have to build up to it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, or be so supremely confident. Yeah. But I wasn't bad or anything. I was, you know, and I got some very good notes from the director, and there was a really nice camaraderie. But yeah, I wasn't sure.
So maybe
Anyway, music's always been, you know, what I wanted to do because I was the obsessed kid buying my singles, going out gardening, delivering bread, delivering newspapers, and saving my pocket money to go down to my independent record shop and buy the single that was in the top 20 that week. And then I'd go down to the youth club, which was held on a Tuesday and Thursday, Woodford Street Youth Club in Pemberton, a suburb of Wigan, which is in Greater Manchester. and I would drive everybody crazy with my latest single purchase. So it's always been music for me. Maybe that's really the reason.
It could be. I mean, when you're talking, I still have my singles. I still have my singles from the 80s. I still have cassettes. I still have 12 inches. I have all of my collection still. And I do have some of my father-in-law's 8 tracks, which I think he might have an Andy Williams in there, but because they're vintage 8 tracks. So, and I even have some of my grandmother's 33 and a third, or not 33 and a third, 78s. So I have all that media. And the thing is, there's something different when you would go down to that store to buy that 45, that you would have the picture sleeve, you'd have the liner notes, you'd have all those things. And now, with it all being digitized, you've lost something.
Oh, I think many of our generation would 100% agree. The value, the value of working to save that money and to go down and physically hold it, to walk physically to the shop to get it, to walk home, to take it out of the sleeve, to put it on the record player, to either press a button and the arm goes over automatically, or you just do it manually, and then you get the crackle,
Hmm.
and then the music starts. It was so exciting when my parents bought my first stereogram. In the 50s and 60s, the albums would or singles would proudly label mono,
Hmm. Hmm.
like it was something good. And then stereo came along, and my parents, who were poor, and everything was bought on, in England we say hire purchase.
Was
I
that
don't know
like
what you call
layaway? Where
but
layaway, you would pull it, you would put down money, and then you'd have to keep paying on it weekly, and then
exactly.
then you get it.
Yeah. Well, in this case, you would get it immediately, but you would have to pay,
Okay.
on 2 years or whatever it was, so you paid it off. It was a big thing here. But yeah, they got the stereogram, and the first record we they bought was Crackling Rose by Neil Diamond.
Okay.
Crackling Rose. I think that was before Sweet Caroline. But and then of course there became an Andy Williams album.
Well, and
Then 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 there was a Stylistics album. They were huge in the UK, the Stylistics.
then
You Make Me Feel Brand New.
I remember that song.
Sorry,
No, I remember that song.
Donna. You Make Me Feel Brand New. I think it was number one for like 3 months. It's
Nice.
just huge. Yeah, I'm trying to think what some of the other albums were.
Well, I was gonna say,
Um,
and then they had the stereo. My grandparents had the stereo where you could stack the records, and so it would play, and then it would drop the next one, and then it would play that one.
Yeah,
And but the thing is, the one thing that is lacking about vinyl, which is disappointing, the CD would let you hear it all the way through. The vinyl, you got to get up, you got to flip it over.
yeah.
But small inconvenience.
That was all part of the fun.
Yeah.
My mum's friend Irene, uh, and they went out socially together. They was the same age. Irene, when I was about 14, Irene decided she was going to get rid of this compact 7-inch. It was just a single player, only played singles, and it was portable, but it was on power. And it was so cute, like a 50s design. And it wasn't ivory. It was what's that? What's that stuff called? They used to make old telephones of it.
Not
It
bisque.
cream.
Cream.
And it's plastic, but it's called, I can't think of the word. Anyway, it was lovely. But guess what came with it? 6 singles she didn't want anymore. And one of them was the Doris Day classic, Move Over, Darling, from
Nice.
I think an old film with Rock Hudson. And I played that song to death. I still love it today. I just think it's fabulous. Massive production. Because Doris was at her peak then, wasn't she?
Oh yeah.
Wonderful. Her voice was amazing. Another one was, let me think, probably a British hit called Come Outside. And Bridget the Midget. was this kind of quirky song by a guy called Ray Stevens.
Oh,
And
I,
and there was a lot of words in it, and I learned every word. Then I would take the hairbrush as a microphone and perform it for Irene. And every time she came round, you've got to imagine Irene, the real character, working class northern lady, and she'd say in her accent, "Come on, when are you going to do that Bridget the midget for me?" Like this. And of course, I loved performing for her. So maybe that's where it all started. I don't know.
it seems like that would be you had the audience that wanted to see you perform, and as long as you could continue to perform, I mean that's when we have adults respecting what we do, that's a gift. And so I would say definitely that most likely was what started your love of performing.
I should dedicate my next record to Irene, shouldn't I?
Yeah,
Auntie Irene. She wasn't actually my auntie, but we called her Auntie Irene
I
because
had
she
an
was,
go ahead.
yeah, you had the same.
I had an Auntie Rosie. And I had Aunt Rosie, and Aunt Rosie was a character. She was a barmaid. She would come home at sometimes four, most of the time at seven. I was like 3 or 4 years old, and apparently I started acting like this lady. So my mom did not know her. She went over and knocked on the door, and she's like, "Excuse me, I have a very impressionable little girl. Can you tone it down?" My Aunt Rosie looked at her and said, "F you," and slammed the door in her face. They became friends. But my Aunt Rosie
Wow.
had a collection of wigs, shoes, everything. So I understand. I understand completely what you're
Oh,
talking
I
about.
love characters like that. Yeah. They're like the rebel of the neighborhood. But
Hmm.
bring it on, bring it on.
So yeah, I mean, I think, and those people I think also help us have somebody else in our life outside of the constrictions of our parents.
Yeah. That's very politically put, safely.
I try to be safe sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes, not always.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
I remember my dad used to say to me, so I'd go out cutting, everybody had hedges. So I'd go around cutting hedges, take me an hour to earn 10p. Gosh, what was 10p? I have no idea. Well, what would that be in cents? Maybe 10 cents or the, roughly around 10 cents. And I'd go out all day to earn this. I think a single at the independent record store was 35p, 35 pence. And my dad was flabbergasted and he said, "You've worked all day and now you've gone and thrown that away on a bloody record." He didn't understand. But for me, it was an absolute passion. Yeah. I probably had a little radio at the back of the boring classes that I didn't like at school. I'd be listening ever so quiet. I may have even had one of those mono headphones. It and then I did it at home under the bedclothes at night. I'd be listening. Yeah, weird, isn't it? Music, it was always music, 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 obsessed with music. Still am really. Every day I wiki something. I listen to the radio, different radio stations, and I love music trivia. I look things up. The trick is remembering it.
Oh, yes, yes. You're
Because
talking. Go ahead.
go on,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
we just take in so much more information nowadays, don't we? I think we take it for granted. Well, I don't need to remember that because I can just look it up again.
Yeah, I mean, we used to, how many phone numbers did you used to know compared to now? And when you were talking about
Exactly.
school, no, I didn't have a radio, but I would sit there in the back of the class that I really just hated with my star hits, which was the American equivalent to smash hits. So actually, most likely you were in one of those magazines because it was the early 80s. And
Yeah,
looking through them going, oh, okay. Yeah, and I'm supposed to be doing working class, but it was just like, no, not this class. Mm-mm. So
yeah,
I think there's always the need for if we find a passion, if we're interested in music. And I mean, my interest then would lead me to becoming a bass player. Granted, I never fully did anything with it, but there was the interest that started because of a certain action, just like with singing. So for you, everything, I mean, I started the show with saying, if you're at the right place at the right time, things kind of start working out. And I think that's you've proven that time and
Well,
time again.
nothing happens if you stay at home. You got to put yourself out there. And yeah, you might get rejected, but at least you've made something happen. And
Exactly.
what's the expression? Uh, when one door closes, another one opens. Although we like to jokingly say, just remember when one door closes, another one slams in your face.
True. True.
That 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 expression goes when you get a bit cynical.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's a bit of luck, it's a bit of serendipity, it's a bit of hard work. It's not just about talent. It never has been, you know.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to cover? Because I know you're on a time schedule, so I'm making sure we wrap up before the hour passes. So is there anything we haven't talked about?
Not really. I mean, I live with a lovely guy called Steve. Um, I'm not flying the flag for that, for being gay particularly, but I am proud of the fact that um, I managed to find Mr. Right, you know,
Awesome.
when my two brothers are both twice divorced.
Yeah,
And I always tease them about it. So yeah, me and Steve have been together for 32 years,
that's
still
wonderful.
going strong. Um, I don't know what the secret is. It's a bit of everything, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's a bit like having a garden. You've got to tend the garden.
Yeah.
You've got to create memories and try to do some good things together. But I had some really painful early relationships, and I think when the right person comes along, there's just no arguing. It just gels, it fits, it's nice, there's no stress.
Yeah.
I think maybe you have to be ready for that. I think timing is key. You know, if I'd perhaps if I'd met the right person before, because I didn't meet Steve till I was 34, 34, yeah. So maybe before then I just wouldn't have been ready. I don't know. But I I didn't particularly want to talk about that. But um, I am what I am.
It's okay that you did because you know what? Love is love, and if you find a relationship that that has lasted the test of time and you've watched other relationships disintegrate, then why do we question it? Love is love, and if you happen to love a gentleman, or if the thing is, we want to put people in boxes, and we don't need to do that. We don't. I mean, I had a
No,
conversation recently because when I first left my first husband, my roommate and I went down to New Orleans, and my stepmother took us out, and my dad had one of his friends come along, and there's a picture of me, and I've openly talked about this before, of me kissing my friend and having my hand on the guy's crotch, and my stepmother showed it to my dad. And then my dad, of course, later on says, because before I moved back up here, he's like, "So are you a lesbian?" I'm like, "No." But because of that picture, he thought that. And it was
yeah,
ridiculous. It was ridiculous
yeah.
because I was drunk. I was having fun. And if I did decide to be that, if I did decide to be a lesbian, then that's my choice. But our parents kind of go, oh, why? If we love somebody and we're happy, that's all that should matter.
I think maybe the reason I mentioned it is because it was such a struggle when I was young. There were no role models. And when I had girlfriends and I had some experiences with guys around the age of 16, 17. And then one day, out of the blue, the stuff that they talk about in all the songs happened. I, I can't, was it love or some sort of an infatuation? I don't know, but it was powerful.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, I am one of those that they all say is bad.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. And that's why I ran away from home at 16 because I thought, God, if my dad finds out, he's just going to kill me because my dad was a bit of a bully. And I disappeared for 2 years. I finally went back home around the age of 18. very nervously. I told my mother in the kitchen quietly, Mum, I've got something to tell you. I am gay. I probably said gay. I think the word gay was around then, just, yeah, in the vocabulary, vocabulary. Um, and she said, she smiled. She said, I had a pretty good idea,
Aw.
and it doesn't make any difference to me. And she gave me a hug and told me that she loved me. And that was a relief. It was a lovely moment to get that support, you know. But the first thing I said to her was, don't tell Dad. But eventually, Dad did come round. And the first time he met Steve, he did something really unusual. He hugged him.
Aw.
Instead of like shaking hand and being formal hello, he sort of pulled him towards him and hugged him. Very sweet, in a way to say, it's okay. So that was nice. So, yeah, people can be educated. You know, it feels like the world is going more right wing
Hmm.
at the moment. And
Which
I
is
don't really want to get into politics, but um, gay people, whether they're gay girls or gay guys or bis or whatever, can make such an important contribution to life in so many ways. You know, if you think of the gay British mathematician Alan Turing, that was the the story of his life was in the film The Imitation Game. Um, I mean, they reckon that he saved millions of lives because he broke the Enigma code, the German Enigma code, and brought the war to an early end. You know, he was gay.
yeah.
So for anyone out there who might be fear gays, just don't. We're
No,
just normal people. We're just normal people. We just love um, someone of our own. Um, I don't like using the word sex. I'm looking for other words. Someone of our own.
here, you just love someone because you love someone. It doesn't matter about their sex. You love someone because you love them. They have your
Yeah,
heart.
yeah, it's a much deeper connection than uh and anyway, you know, I do say to my straight friends, every s- no, I better not say that.
Mhm.
I say, no, I'm not, no, let's not even go there. Um, well, look, I say to my straight friends, so many straight guys fantasize about being in a situation with perhaps two women, you
Mhm.
know. So then it's okay. So it's a bit hypocritical to criticize it if it's two guys. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's how I feel about it. I just think live and let live, people. Come on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm gonna say thank you so very much because I know you said that you only had an hour for me, so I thank you. So when I do research for a show, I usually will get a press kit and then I do other research. And the information about October, his performing in the theater, that was actually in the press kit that said October. I did not know that it was 3 years ago, and that's okay. I'm glad he caught it, but I just want a clarification that most of the things I do, I get research, and I either get research from the internet or I get a press kit. And then I cobble everything together so I can make this interview what it needs to be. It's not that I have strategic questions that I'm going to ask. I have notes. I have notes to try to guide me along if I need to go there. So I think that sometimes, things happen and well, I'm human and I may get a fact wrong and that's okay. And if the guest can correct me, that's awesome because I want the facts out there the way they need to be. What I wanted to say though about, talking to Limahl, it was kind of one of those things when I found out I was going to have the opportunity to, that even though I was here in the present, my mind went back to being in my parents' family room and sitting there in front of the TV that was in the cabinet, not one of those big ones, but one of those smaller ones in a media cabinet, and seeing Kajagoogoo come on MTV and them talking about Nick Rhodes producing. It wasn't even that he was a co-producer. They just because Duran was having their success, so here we're gonna piggyback off that. And that's a great way for marketing too. But it was weird for me because yes, it took me back. It was like here I am at 57 being 16 again and looking back at that going, okay, here we are. And I think sometimes when we look at artists that maybe aren't having the same success in this country, but they're still popular over in the UK because Limahl's had several singles over in the UK that have tracked. But because that is over there and not here, we don't necessarily always know about it. The good thing about music nowadays is that with streaming services, you can find all of the stuff wherever you need it to be. As far as being at the right place at the right time, that's half the battle. But you also have to be willing to take that shot. And I agree with him that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's a hard thing, especially when you're trying to make a name for yourself. But the thing is, if you have the talent and you nowadays, if you market yourself enough, you may find that right person. I mean, I hate to say it. Look at Justin Bieber and Usher. You know, we all know that story. He was on YouTube, and yeah, I know it's not the greatest story in the world now, but when it all happened, the illusion that we were presented with, um, it showed that, you know, you could find somebody and this is what happens and the great discovery story. But there are so many, if you look at the course of history in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry, you know, the girl at Schwab's soda fountain, how we found somebody. So being at the right place is definitely a good thing. And I've talked about that with my own life in certain examples. And you have to be willing to take those risks. You can't just sit there and go, well, and it was funny because the other day when I was driving somewhere, there was this t-shirt that said no risk, no story. And so that kind of reinforces that. And when we don't take those risks, we can look back and go, well, what did I do? If I never decided, I remember that in January of 2021, I sat down and I recorded an episode of the podcast. And it was the sound was off, everything was wrong about it. And it just, I never let it air. My friend Sarah had come on, we recorded it, it sucked. And I thought, well, I don't know if I want to do this. And something kept telling me, no, you have to do this. You have to keep going. So then I made the decision to record that very first episode. And I realized that if I was going to ask people their personal stuff to put it out there, because at the time, the Better Two podcast focused on that Better Two moment. Was it better to have done something than not? I decided to tell my story about my mother. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it because that has led me on this amazing journey. And now the fact that I get to talk to different people than I was talking to before and people that I would only dream of talking to, you know? I mean, the funny thing is, there's a guest that has not come on the show yet, but I ran across them and I'm still working to get them on the show. And this person is somebody that I would really like to have. And hopefully one day I get them. And I will not say who they are because I don't want to jinx it. But when I stood in front of them, I asked them, I said, would you come on my show? And they said, talk to management. And so we've been trying to make that happen, but they've been busy and blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is, I still took the shot. And sometimes you have to swallow your pride, swallow whatever fear you have, and just do it. Just do it. It's like giving the book to the person I wanted to give the book to. That was the one thing I set in mind that I wanted to do, and I did it. And so you have to be willing to step in and take that risk. Because as one of my friends told me a long time ago from a dream she had, and this person that is the one, you know, it was a person that I had admired, told her in this dream, tell her there's no memories without the risk. And that's true. And I have to look back at my life and think of all the memories I have because I took that risk. And I would say the same is true for Limahl. He's done a lot. If you look at his history, he's been in theater, he's been in musical theater, he's been in television, he's performed, he goes to these festivals and performs. And so I think we have to look at the bigger picture of if you sit there and you do absolutely nothing, what have you gained? because life is passing you by. You have to be willing to step in, step out, and do things. And that's the most important thing because your life, well, you got this life and you may reincarnate. But in this life, you need to make the most of it. And the one thing Limahl said is, yeah, you can have fun when you're younger. It's awesome to have fun when you're younger. But yeah, at between your 40s and your 50s, your body's going to start to betray you if you're not taking care of it. And you're going to be like, what the hell? So listen to him and listen to me. Take care of yourself. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Because when your body starts to betray you, you're kind of like, what the heck? So, on that note, I thank you for tuning in as always. And I thank Rich Zai for 30 Year Audio for doing the audio production. I thank Fast Susie for the intro and the outro music. I thank Limahl for coming on. And, well, I thank you guys for tuning in. And no matter when you listen, morning, noon, or night, I really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.